What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm hoping this video doesn't get me banned or censored because you know what YouTube's like. But hopefully, being a reaction video, it will do what is necessary to bring attention to the topic. So today we've got Britain's civil war will be ethnic. Islamists have already started it. Professor David Betts. This is from New Culture Forum. In this clip from his longer NFC Whittle interviews, Professor David Betts, Professor of War in the Department of War Studies at King's College London. That was a place that I actually wanted to go and study my degree. They have some amazing degrees in the War Studies College. He explains that Britain is heading for an ethnic-based civil war, which will set urban against rural. Oh, interesting. He also explains that Islamists are in phase 2 of the classic model of insurgency. So let's go. Let's see what he's got to say. And as always, let me know in the comments below what you think.
The most basic definition of civil war is a war that is occurring between two or more belligerents who, at the beginning of the conflict, were under the same sovereign authority.
Yeah.
So if you just simply take that for what it's worth, or as a definition, one can cover quite a lot of things. I think the more pertinent aspect of your question, though, was who is this going to be? Initially, and already and basically at this stage, I think we're talking about essentially relatively small factions within distinctive communities, identity groups, specifically breaking along ethnic lines, as I spoke of, and indeed as David Cameron was talking about when he talked about ghettoized communities living in their silos and so on. So initially, and I think probably already now, what we're talking about are small fractions within those groups that are highly radicalized, that are intent on violence. The distinction, the main split here now is we already have a fairly active anti-status quo violent movement within the Muslim community in Britain. That's why we've got 50,000 people on the terror watch list, or roughly thereabouts. Let's say somewhere between 40 and 50,000.
Jesus, 40 to 50,000 people in the UK right now are on the terrorist watch list. I didn't know that. Guys, let me know in the comments below if you knew about that. That's wild, man. What the hell?
On the terror watch list, we've got a fairly regular occurrence of terror attacks. So
how can they not find 40 to 50,000 people that are on the terrorist watch list? Britain's one of the most surveilled places on the planet, isn't it? The CCTV everywhere. How on earth are they not finding and catching them?
Within one of these factions, we already have a perfectly obvious, readily identifiable violent extremist faction that is attempting in various ways to increase the tensions within society, to take greater and greater control over its conscience community, and create a greater split. The government has said a bunch of times that they're terribly concerned about the counter phenomenon, the phenomenon which you might say is in natural counterposition with that, which is the nativist or the extreme right, or however they tend to characterize this. This is essentially, and by this, all they really mean is they're concerned with the emergence of a white identity movement that essentially adopts fully the same patterns of behavior, the same insistence that essentially a multicultural
Yes.
life is impossible for the country, and begins therefore to conduct attacks. These now, we haven't really seen any of these that are terribly significant. There have been a handful, but relatively speaking, these are rudimentary. But the government is concerned that the seed is there, the potential is there, and I think they're perfectly right to be concerned that. About exactly those things.
Yes.
The major concern really is that whereas Islamic extremism or Islamism, that combination of um, Islam and fundamentalism and our political fundamentalism is ultimately an extremist movement within a minority community, whereas the emerging anti-status quo ideas, identity movements within the white community have the potential for mass mobilization on account of the fact that the white population is still the majority population of the country. You need a mass population to support a mass movement. So that combination of factors, and particularly the potential for radicalization effectively of the majority community, is extremely worrisome from a societal cohesion, from the perspective of someone who might be worried about the outbreak of
Is it not fair to say that the whites, as he say, let's just call it as it is, because he's stuttering a lot and umming and ahhing, and I guess it's because he doesn't want people to take what he's saying out of context. Because in the world that we live today, you can say something that's factual or that you've studied or that your opinion, and all of a sudden people are going to take it out of context. So let's just talk facts here at the risk of getting censored or banned and having this video taken down. Is he saying that the white Brits, essentially, because they are the majority, that can be a real big problem because of the size of the British white population compared to the minority radicals, of the Islamists, right? So he's saying that because there's so many whites, that's something to really be more concerned about. So it's almost going to be like a bit of a race war or a race civil war against the radicals. But something that he hasn't said, and I'm not sure if he's going to actually say, is the fact that the white Brits, who he's saying, could become a mass movement because of the majority of them, they are turning into this, or it is growing in size, or they're becoming a little bit more radical in ways that maybe a little bit more disenfranchised because of the minority Islamists that are radicalized themselves, right? And hopefully that kind of makes sense. I'm not a professor, I'm not an academic, and I'm probably not the most articulate person either to say it, but let me know in the comments below, guys, if you agree or disagree or understand what I'm saying here. I'm just trying to understand what he is saying and put it across to you. But my concern here is that the thing that is creating the divide is not actually being discussed. 40 to 50,000 Islamists on the terror watch list. I mean, come on, if they're a minority, that's a bloody lot of terrorists, guys, or at least people that are on the terrorist watch list. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let's keep going.
Substantial violent domestic political turmoil.
In your writing, I mean, and I've watched some of the other things you've done, you very clearly set out the kind of various stages. I know that you have indeed said that there are different kind of theories about starting of a civil war, but the one that you came down on, or rather the one that you used, was actually Chairman Mao's, was it not? And I wonder whether you could go through those stages with us. They're quite simple 3 stages, aren't there? And at what stage do you think we might be at the moment, if any?
I used the Chairman Mao's model because it is the most common model of insurgency. So if you're in a class, university class on insurgency, or you're studying it in a military staff college or something like that, you'll hear you hear reference to something called classical insurgency. Essentially, what they're referring to is the Maoist model, and it's very simple. It has 3 phases. The first phase is usually described as the defensive phase, or phase 1 is the defensive phase, and it's defensive from the perspective of the insurgent actor. During this phase 1, what the insurgent is doing is primarily political organization, proselytization, propaganda activities. It is getting its house in order. It is building its conscience community, which is just an academic word for people who listen to it, or the people whom it is trying to energize, to mobilize. So it's building up a structure. It's working out its narratives. It's doing all these sorts of things. In phase one, the insurgent is usually not very physically active. There might be a handful of pinprick attacks here and there, in order to obtain weapons or materials or something like that. Oftentimes there is an alignment in the early stage, in the very earliest stage, between criminal groups and the insurgent group, because criminals tend to have access to muscle in ways that the political insurgents usually don't in the beginning. Phase two is this can last a long time. It may last 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. Then phase two is usually referred to as the stalemate, and that's when attacks have begun to occur, but the insurgent forces are not superior to the government security forces. They don't have more muscle, but they have the potential to create no-go areas. They have stable base areas. They're beginning to build up a military structure.
So, guys, for those of you that don't know, there are no-go areas all across Europe at the moment, and those no-go areas are inhabited by radical Islamists or Islamic communities. Now, I don't want to paint every single Islamic Muslim with the same brush, but that's just, at least that's what I've been reading, and that's what I've been seeing in the news and the media and reports and things like that. Professional studies, books, etc. Well documented that there's these no-go zones, including in the UK. All right, so we're well and truly in that second phase that he's talking about.
They've got, it might be a rudimentary military structure, but they've got a fair number of tough guys who are reliable, reasonably well armed, can conduct operations. And again, this might last a long time, but it's when you start to see ambushes on police stations, for example, or attacks on government figures.
Not quite sure that's happened yet in the UK. Let me know if I'm wrong. Comments below, guys. I don't think that's quite happening yet in Europe, but that might be coming soon. Who knows? I guess you could probably argue that it has with some of the terror attacks that have occurred, like, for example, the Manchester Arena and things like that. I don't know if those are specifically targeting people within government that were at those events. But let me know in the comments, guys. Let's discuss.
Judges, lawyers, media figures, that mix of, it becomes more physically active.
Yeah.
And the third phase is the usually called the offensive, and that's when the insurgent has built up sufficient material strength while the counterinsurgent or the government has weakened to the extent that the insurgent can contemplate actual peer-on-peer combat with the security forces. So that's the classic Maoist model, right, and more or less tracks what happened in the Chinese Civil War and some other cases of insurgency, which we might give example of. I think that Britain has very likely no chance whatsoever of going to a phase three sort of civil war, largely because we don't have the kind of fractures that I'm talking about don't have a defined political geographic entity to attach themselves to. You're not going to have Northumbria versus the North versus the South. It isn't going to split that way. It's much more complex.
As you said, city, sort of country versus city, almost.
So I think the main thing is going to be urban versus rural, and specifically, I think London is the most endangered. If you look at just at the way power, actual literal power, not abstract political power flows. actual power in Britain flows from the north to the south.
Yeah.
So our major power lines, our gas lines, compression stations, all of that associated infrastructure is essentially located in rural and peri-urban areas and feeds a giant and feeds that giant metropolis in the south, which is rather unstable at the best of times.
Yes.
So you can imagine what London might be like if you switch the power off
Yes. Yeah.
for a week or so, or a week or a couple of weeks, and you do that five or six times in a winter. Switch off the electricity, the gas, you disrupt the transportation system. It will rapidly most estimations would just rapidly tear itself apart. Or at least that's the assumption, and is my working assumption when I think about red teaming the strategy of an insurgent group. But you asked where we are with respect to this. The answer is, I think that as far as the Islamist factions are concerned, they're somewhere at the beginning of phase 2. And we know this because there are plenty of no-go areas in Britain. There are parts of British cities where there is negotiated policing. The police either don't go there, or they go there. When they go there, they go they prepare by consulting with local leaders.
My God, man, how is it that this is happening in the UK? Why is this even happening? Like negotiated policing, and they've got to negotiate with the leaders. So it's like going back to feudal systems. It's like each area is like run by gangs, and so the gangs are like paying off the police and stuff. I mean, this is wild. It's like what you would only see in a Hollywood movie, but it's actually happening in real life, guys.
And the like. They're clearly already in a phase of conducting semi-regular regular attacks, and clearly there is a large enough contingent of possible attackers to sustain a pretty gigantic internal security network.
I'll tell you what, guys, 40 to 50,000 people just being on terrorist watch list, and then they're going to have their own followers. So let's just double it and say there's about 100,000 people, 150,000 people. That's a lot of people, guys, in a country that could be causing chaos and attacking lawyers and media and government officials and just creating mayhem. There's a lot of people.
Covering, as I said, somewhere between 40 or 50,000 people at any given time. As far as the other side, the white identity groups, I think we're somewhere in the middle of phase 1, probably.
Mm-hmm. In terms of Britain, to be sentimental for a minute, British always tended to pride themselves, rightly or wrongly, on this sense of lack of political violence, in the country, and on being, just a country that has evolved. In some ways, it's not true. Obviously, we did have a civil war, back in the 1640s. But you are from America originally, are you not, David?
No, I'm Canadian originally. Yes.
Oh, Canadian. Well, as a Canadian, when you look at Britain, are you surprised that you could possibly be able to apply this to this country? Does it surprise you?
Yes, yeah, it does very much. It doesn't. I moved to Britain in 1998.
Right.
And I feel it's been
David, you're a smart guy. You got some interesting insights here, but you need to learn to speak on video or some public speaking, man. That was a tough watch, guys. Don't you reckon? Let me know in the comments below if you agree or not. Let's check out some of the comments for our 3,000 plus comments. If it goes to thousands on Terror Watch List, and yeah, they are still allowed to stay here when they should all have been gone. Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning. How have they not found them and got rid of them? Why are they still allowed to be there? Why is it not? I mean, they're going around arresting people for mean tweets at the moment. What you write on X and things like that. Why can't they go and find the people that are on this terrorist watch list? It's the most surveilled place in the world. I think actually it might be second now to China, but still it's right up there, top 3 at least. Dear politicians, how do you sleep in your beds at night knowing the mess and danger you've put us all in? Meanwhile, you live securely in your gated, safe communities and will be the first for priority to be relocated to safe zones. All parties have betrayed us and our country. Yeah, I mean, you can't, it's the politicians that have allowed this to happen over a long period of time. Not necessarily the ones that are currently in power, or the ones that are in power now have the power to make a change. It's been happening for a long time. In my 48 years, I've never felt the hatred people have for politicians in their hand as we are past boiling point. Yeah, I'm seeing the UK as just like in a strange state of being at the moment. 50 counter watch list. Unbelievable. They should be the first to be deported. Radical Islam is a snake hiding in the grass. Moderate Islam is the grass hiding the snake. It's not a civil war. The enemy isn't even native. It's a liberation. Interesting take. Chaos brings order in the end. I'm rooting for Britain if it does pop off. Europe should be for Europeans. Love from America. Deport those who would destroy you. Your kindness for them is weakness to be exploited. In the UK, all new police recruits and employees are taught the main terrorist threat is the far right. This alone should tell you whose side the government is on. Yeah, this is a massive problem at the moment. You know, there's all this talk about the far right and how dangerous the far right is and blah, blah, blah. And I guess it's because of, you know, David's insight there saying that the far right could be the majority problem, right? Because of the amount of people that are in the UK who are white, who are British, who might, you know, turn to that side. But, you know, no one's talking about the reason why they're becoming that way and the reason why people are leaning that direction. It's right obvious. It's there right in front of your face, and that for some reason people want to turn a blind eye to it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Perhaps you think this is a whole load of nonsense. It's just fear mongering. Perhaps you think the problem isn't as bad as it is, or maybe you think it's worse than it was a few years ago and it's only just getting worse. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.